Alien Envoy wanted to own him. For fun. Now the galaxy wants them dead. In the electric haze of midnight at the sprawling Arcadia Bazaar, Sira Valen threaded her way through the labyrinthine alleys, the hood of her iridescent cloak drawn low to conceal the elaborate silver filigree that adorned her crimson skin. Neon glyphs pulsed overhead, reflecting off glassy puddles and the chrome faces of traders hawking forbidden wares, data crystals, black market tech, a cage of fluttering winged biolooms. She kept her head down, moving with the fluidity of someone used to slipping through crowds unseen, her prehensile tail tucked close beneath her cloak. She was a Xylarian envoy, supposed to be above the fray of smugglers and information brokers. But her curiosity and stubborn independence had brought her to the heart of the station's black market. The crowd's din faded as the auctioneer's voice sliced through the gloom. Exceptional find, authentic Solarian male, apprehended during the recent border clash, physically intact, minimal trauma. Two massive guards in battered armor shoved a human onto the stage. He staggered but didn't fall, standing tall despite the bruises darkening his jaw and cheekbones. His dark hair was matted with blood, but his posture was proud, chin tilted up, amber-flecked eyes flickering with challenge as he scanned the crowd. Charges, spying, sabotage, unauthorized incursion, the auctioneer intoned, circling the platform with predatory glee. A rare opportunity. All cognitive files included. Wipe him, dissect him, your choice. Sira felt the ripple of unease and predatory interest pass through the crowd. Mercenaries, scientists, intelligence agents. She was no stranger to the trade in living intelligence, but the human's unwavering gaze unsettled her. His eyes lingered on her, piercing through the shadow of her hood. He was not afraid, not exactly, more calculating, measuring the angles of the room, the mood of his captors. There was a story in that gaze, a spark that defied the chains around his wrists. Bidding erupted fast and fierce. 50,000 credits, barked a vacant collector. 80, snarled a researcher in a stasis cloak. Then the human caught Sira's eye. He held her gaze for a fraction of a second, then gave a subtle, deliberate nod. An unspoken plea, or perhaps a challenge. She acted before she could think. 120,000 credits, she called, her voice slicing through the chaos. A hush fell. Major Harkin Drell, burly and adorned with Xylarian military insignia, countered almost instantly. 150,000. The air crackled with tension. Sira's tail flicked in agitation beneath her cloak. She refused to look away from the human's eyes. 175,000, she said, her words unwavering. Drell hesitated, lips curling in displeasure. The crowd's anticipation mounted. Sold to the Xylarian delegate, the auctioneer declared, hammer falling with finality. Within moments, Sira found herself leading the human, her purchase, through the maze of maintenance tunnels that snaked beneath the bazaar. The guards had relinquished him with suspicious glances, but a flash of her diplomatic sigil dissuaded questions. The corridor was lit by flickering emergency strips, every shadow a potential threat. You shouldn't have intervened, he murmured, rubbing at the fresh chafe marks where the restraints had bitten his wrists. Sira shot him a sidelong glance, her features sharp and beautiful even in the blue-tinged gloom. Would you prefer I let them erase you? She retorted, voice low but edged with steel. He gave a wry smile. I would have preferred not to be caught at all. They moved quickly, wary of every sound. Name? She pressed, her fingers poised on the biometric lock to her private quarters. Commander Jace Wren, he replied, jaw set with the dignity of someone used to command. Commander, not thief. Sira arched a brow. You were caught stealing. I was reclaiming stolen data, not stealing. He watched her warily, as if weighing whether she'd believe him. Inside her quarters, Sira finally released the restraints, but only after making him swear to cooperate. She was careful, her every movement measured, not trusting him or herself. She noted the way he flexed his hands, testing the freedom, but made no sudden moves. He straightened, focusing on her. The Xylarian military is preparing to destabilize this sector. They have a new weapon, one your council won't hesitate to use. I have to warn Solarian Command. She stiffened, the weight of her office settling on her shoulders. Proof? He nodded at her comms array. Your diplomatic channel is compromised. Let me show you. Reluctant but curious, Sira handed him her console. His fingers flew over the interface, eyes narrowing in concentration. In seconds, he highlighted a section of code, a surveillance worm, elegant and insidious. She stared in disbelief. That breach is supposed to be impossible. He glanced up, a spark of grim humor in his eyes. Nothing's unbreakable, but they'll know we found it. An urgent ping from her comms interrupted, her superiors summoning her to an emergency council. Xylarian fleets had been spotted massing at the border. Jace's warning was proving all too real. With alarms echoing distantly through the station, Sira weighed her choices with lightning speed. She turned to Jace, resolve hardening. If I help you reach your command, you tell me everything. No lies. Deal? He nodded once, solemn. Deal. She moved quickly, rummaging in a locker for a spare Xylarian uniform. Tossing it to him, she said, You'll pose as my assistant. Stay close. Follow my lead. As he stripped off the ragged remnants of his prison garb, Sira's gaze caught on the scars lacing his back, old burns, blade marks, the stories of hard battles etched in flesh. She averted her eyes, but something in her chest tightened. He pulled on the uniform, looking every inch the Xylarian aide despite the exhaustion in his posture. She studied him, searching for any sign of weakness. Ready? She asked, voice softer now. The moment stretched between them. He met her gaze, amber eyes lingering on her with something unspoken, a flicker of gratitude or warning or hope. Ready, he answered. They slipped from the quarters, merging with the chaos as alarms rang out. Sira led the way, pulse racing. They escaped Arcadia Bazaar under the cover of stealth, a pair of fugitives bound by necessity, and by a connection neither could yet name. The hunt had begun, but as they vanished into the station's underbelly, Sira couldn't ignore the spark between them, a dangerous, undeniable current, charged with secrets and possibilities. With Arcadia far behind, Sira and Jace settled into a tense partnership aboard her ship. The hull hummed with the steady thrum of the drive, but inside the small command deck, the air bristled with questions. Sira crossed her arms, posture regal even in the close quarters, her silver-marked skin catching stray light from the console. Who are you really? She demanded, voice low and edged with suspicion. Jace, sitting on the edge of the auxiliary bench, met her gaze without flinching. The bruises on his face had faded, but the tension in his frame hadn't. Commander Jace Wren, he answered. Solarian Reconnaissance Corps, Special Operations Division. She arched an eyebrow. Not exactly a common title for someone found at a black market auction. He ran a hand through his dark hair, jaw tight. I didn't steal from the Xylarians. I infiltrated their covert lab. My orders were to gather proof, a weapon capable of breaching planetary shields. His eyes flicked to hers, amber catching the monitor's glow. It violates every treaty signed after the border wars. Sira's tail twitched, betraying her shock. You're saying they have a shield breaker? He nodded grimly. And they're nearly ready to deploy it. She stared at him for a long moment, weighing truth against subterfuge. How did you survive the interrogation? He hesitated, then reached into his uniform's inner pocket, producing a slender device. Neural dampeners, he said. Block certain forms of psychic and chemical extraction. But the Xylarians damaged it. He offered it to her, expression unguarded for the first time. Sira took the device, her crimson fingers brushing his as she examined it. The internal circuitry was delicate, alien even to her practiced eye. She set to work with her toolkit, the tip of her tail curling with concentration. "This is advanced," she murmured, soldering a fractured filament. "More sophisticated than the last Solarian models I saw." He watched her, tension in his shoulders easing as she worked. "I've had to upgrade it myself. Cost me half my retirement fund and nearly got me killed on Edris Outpost." Her lips quirked in reluctant amusement, but she didn't look up. "Consider this my good deed for the cycle." When she finished, she handed the device back, her touch lingering. Their eyes met, hers curious and guarded, his full of wary gratitude. For a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between them, sharp as static and impossible to name. Before it could deepen, the ship's klaxons blared. A harsh Xylarian voice crackled over comms. "Unidentified vessel, prepare for boarding, stand down engines." Syrah's eyes widened. "Xylarian patrol, they must have tracked our signature." She sprang into action, her orders rapid and precise. "Jace, follow me." She led him to the cargo bay, past stacked crates and rare artifacts. At the rear, she pressed a hidden panel. An iris-shaped hatch slid open, revealing a shielded compartment lined with grav foam. "In here," she instructed, voice urgent. "It's meant for rare specimens, shielded against scans. I'll come back for you." Jace didn't argue, though his jaw was tight. "You're risking everything." She met his gaze, stubbornness flashing. "So are you. Stay silent." She sealed the hatch, then swept back to the airlock, cloak swirling behind her as she donned her most unflappable diplomatic mask. The Xylarian boarding team stomped aboard, led by none other than Major Harkon Drell. His bulk filled the corridor, armor gleaming. His gaze raked Syrah with suspicion. "Delegate Valen," he said, voice oily, "we have reason to believe you're harboring a fugitive, your recent human acquisition. Where is he?" Syrah affected boredom, her accent aristocratic. "Sold him at Arcadia. You know how the market is. Demand rises, so do the credits. The buyer took him to the Outer Rims, I believe." Drell's eyes narrowed. "You realize there are consequences for misleading security." She lifted her chin. "Are you accusing me of violating protocol?" A long, tense silence. Drell looked past her, searching for a tell. At last, he relented. "We will verify your story. Do not leave the sector." He and his men swept through the ship, but found nothing. Frustrated, he gave a curt nod and departed. Only after the last Xylarian boots had echoed off the deck did Syrah return to the cargo bay. She keyed open the hidden hatch. Jace unfolded himself from the cramped space, shaking stiffness from his limbs. "Too close," he breathed, relief and gratitude mingling in his eyes. She offered a tight smile. "Agreed, but we're clear, for now." Together they set course for Vera Prime, the diplomatic core of the hegemony, where an emergency summit awaited. The journey was tense, the ship's small living quarters forcing a proximity neither could entirely ignore. As Vera's sunlit rings came into view, Syrah handed Jace a data slate. "Protocol, you're my aide. Speak only if necessary, stay at my left, and avoid meeting Xylarian eyes. They'll spot you if you're nervous." He scanned the instructions, brow furrowed. "You trust me to walk into a den of your rivals?" She gave a dry laugh. "I trust you to know that the alternative is worse." In their cramped quarters, the forced intimacy became inescapable. Jace insisted on taking the outer room, sleeping closest to the corridor door. "Security first," he explained, setting a discreet motion sensor. "If anyone comes for you, they go through me." Syrah rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide the way her tail curled, betraying an unexpected warmth. "You're stubborn," he shrugged, a faint smile on his lips. "Old habit." The summit at Vera Prime was a tempest of protocol and tension. Delegates from every power in the sector milled beneath crystal banners, their faces masks of civility. Syrah led Jace through the corridors, her posture impeccable. During a closed session, Jace's alertness never wavered. As the hegemony minister raised a glass, Jace caught a flicker of movement. a gloved hand slipping something into the drink. Without missing a beat, he leaned in, murmuring, "Don't drink that." The minister hesitated, frowning. Syrah, with a diplomat's poise, triggered a silent alarm from her wrist console, all while engaging the would-be saboteur in casual conversation. Jace moved with practiced subtlety. He intercepted the operative with a firm hand on the shoulder, murmuring, "You dropped something," as he palmed the toxin from the table. The security team swept in, carting off the Xylarian operative before a scene could erupt. Later, back in their quarters, adrenaline still crackled between them. Syrah poured 2 crystal glasses of rare Veyron spirits, the liquid shimmering violet in the low light. "To survival," she offered, raising her glass. Jace clinked his against hers, his hand brushing hers in the exchange. The contact lingered, their fingers entwining almost by accident. "We work well together," Syrah whispered, voice softer than she'd intended. Her gaze searched his, as if seeking answers to questions she hadn't dared ask. Jace's eyes darkened. He reached out, tracing the intricate silver patterns that curved across her cheek and down her jaw. His touch was gentle, reverent. Syrah closed the space between them, her lips brushing his in a tentative kiss, an exploration, not a promise. He deepened it, urgency rising, one hand at her waist, the other cradling the back of her neck. For a breathless moment, the universe shrank to the heat of their bodies, the taste of Veyron spirits, the ache of something forbidden blooming between them. A sharp knock shattered the moment. They sprang apart, the air charged with possibility. Syrah smoothed her cloak, Jace straightened his collar, both struggling to catch their breath. Outside, duty and danger waited, but between them lingered the promise of more, the spark of a partnership forged in peril, and something far harder to deny. Their fragile peace shattered when Jace announced, "Drell's onto me. We have to move." His voice was sharp, urgent, slicing through the silence of their quarters. Syrah, perched on the edge of the narrow bunk, stilled, amber eyes flashing in alarm. "Are you certain?" she whispered, every muscle taut. Jace nodded, jaw clenched. "Security feed was accessed. The encryption's been compromised. Xylarian intelligence. Drell knows I'm here." Already, Syrah was moving, gathering essentials with efficient speed. She cast a glance at Jace, noticing the fine sheen of sweat on his brow, the way his hand trembled as he packed. "Jace?" she pressed, voice softer now. "Are you—" He staggered, clutching at the desk for support. A wave of neural feedback arched his body, his face contorted with pain. "Jace!" Syrah was at his side instantly, her arms supporting his weight. She felt the tremor in his muscles, the wild staccato of his pulse beneath her palm. Protocol and caution fell away, replaced by something deeper, fear for him. "I'll be fine," he managed, though his voice was thin, brittle. "The dampeners, they're failing. Can you help?" She guided him to the bed, her hands steady even as her mind raced. "I can stabilize you. But we have to leave now." They worked in tandem, Syrah packing the most vital supplies and her diplomatic credentials, Jace struggling through the pain to gather his field kit. Syrah's tail curled protectively around his wrist as she injected a stabilizer near the base of his skull, murmuring, "Hold on, I won't let you fall." They slipped from the quarters, navigating back corridors as alarms began to echo in the distance. Syrah used her last diplomatic override to commandeer a battered civilian shuttle from the port's lower decks. The vessel's systems protested as she overrode the locks. "Destination?" the onboard nav asked in a flat synthetic voice. Jace, pallor stark against the shadows, managed, "Set course for the Lysar belt." His breath came in shallow bursts. "I have an ally there, trust me." Syrah nodded, fingers flying over the console as she launched the shuttle into the swirling void. The Lysar belt was chaos, asteroids and mining debris swirling in a shifting ballet. Syrah kept them hidden in the shadows, guided by Jace's terse directions. At last, they docked with a hidden refinery nestled in the belt's densest cluster. They were met by Vexel, an insectoid fixer whose limbs clicked as he moved. Segmented eyes glinted in the low light, and his voice rasped through a translation modulator. Commander Wren. Unexpected but not unwelcome. Who is your companion? Xylarian Envoy, Jace answered, leaning heavily on Syrah. We need your expertise. Vexel's antennae twitched. Bring him. The scanners are ready. The lab was cluttered, filled with alien tech and flickering holoscreens. Vexel guided Jace to a diagnostic chair and activated a swarm of microdrones. Syrah hovered close, concern etched across her features. His implants. They're not standard Solarian issue, Vexel announced after a few minutes. Quantum mesh processors, experimental, beyond anything I've seen. Syrah's tail lashed in shock. What does that mean? Vexel zoomed in on a neural scan. There's a dormant partition, hidden deep. It's activating as the neural blocks fail. Whatever's buried in his mind, it's coming online. Jace's breathing grew ragged. I can feel it. Memories, fragments, slipping through, like someone else's thoughts. Before they could probe further, alarms blared throughout the station. Red strobes washed over the lab. Vexel's mandibles snapped in agitation. Multiple ships inbound, Xylarian, hegemony, unidentified signatures. You've been followed. Can you wipe the logs? Syrah demanded. Already done, but you must go, now. Jace's vision blurred as Vexel hustled them to a cramped escape pod. He felt Syrah's hand, warm, grounding, tangling with his. They crammed inside, the hatch sealing with a hiss, as the refinery shook with distant impacts. As the pod shot free, memories surged through Jace, unbidden and relentless. Schematics, equations, code, images of devastation. The core splitter, he gasped, sweat beading at his temples. That's what they hid in my mind. A planet buster. That's why everyone's after us. Syrah's breath caught. They used you as a courier. Jace nodded weakly. And now every faction in the quadrant is hunting us. The pod drifted toward the derelict silhouette of Mir 9, a research station abandoned to the void. Its hull was battered, lights long dead, but its labs still whispered of forbidden science. They slipped aboard through a maintenance lock, silence swallowing them. Inside, Syrah helped Jace to the medical bay, activating ancient equipment with a judicious blend of overrides and luck. She watched anxiously as he connected his neural interface to the station's primary node. Careful, she warned, voice trembling despite her efforts. Jace closed his eyes, letting the flood of data wash through him. Images snapped into focus. Blueprints of the core splitter, lines of code, encrypted protocols. He saw the truth in vivid, excruciating detail. The project was no rogue effort. It was a secret pact. Solarian, Xylarian, hegemony scientists, all working together to create a weapon capable of shattering entire worlds. A weapon hidden in the mind of a Solarian operative, meant to tip the balance of power if war erupted again. He wrenched the interface free, gasping. Syrah caught him, lowering him gently to the floor. What did you see? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Everything, he replied, tears tracking down his cheeks. They made me a Trojan horse. I was never meant to return home. I was meant to be captured, used, the plans, the weapon. It's all in my head. Syrah's expression hardened, the betrayal burning in her eyes. They played us all. My people, yours, the hegemony. They're all complicit. He reached for her, desperate for something solid. She took his hand, her tail curling around his wrist, anchoring him. They found solace in each other's arms, exhaustion and grief melting into a fierce, unexpected intimacy. For a single night, the outside world faded, the galaxy's chaos receding, replaced by the certainty of the bond blooming between them. Jace traced the silver filigree on Syrah's crimson skin. Syrah's tail wound possessively around his hand as she pressed her lips to his. Their connection deepened, not just physical, but neural. the mesh in Jace's mind resonating with Syrah's touch. They whispered truths and promises, clinging to each other as the station drifted through the starless dark. But peace was brief. The station's alarm screamed, a piercing klaxon, echoing down the empty corridors. Syrah jolted upright, scanning the console. "Multiple ships incoming," she reported, voice tight. "They found us." Jace's eyes widened as he scanned the data. "There's a tracker, hidden, triggered when I connected to the neural net. We've been marked." He pulled Syrah close, urgency in every movement. "We have minutes at most." They scrambled, racing through the station's maze-like corridors as warning lights stuttered overhead. Syrah keyed in emergency egress codes, opening a pod bay as distant impacts reverberated through the hull. Jace slid into the escape pod, Syrah following. He punched the launch, the pod ejecting into the maelstrom of arriving ships. Xylarian cruisers, Solarian Black Ops vessels, and rogue pirates all converging on the doomed station. Fire blossomed in the void behind them as the facility erupted in chaos, debris scattering into the storm. Inside the pod, Jace slumped against the wall, breath ragged, mind awash with weapon data. "I was a Trojan horse," he said, voice hollow but resolute. "Meant to be captured. Now everyone's hunting us." Syrah reached for his hand, entwining her fingers with his. Their eyes met, a silent promise, fierce and unyielding. As the pod plunged into the storm-racked wilds of the outer fringe, fugitives bound by dangerous secrets and a love neither could deny, they vanished into the unknown, together or not at all. The outer fringe's outlaw haven, Rift Point, became their refuge. Smog-choked skies and flickering neon marked the city as a crossroads for pirates, mercenaries, and fugitives, perfect for two hunted souls with nowhere left to turn. Syrah moved through the labyrinth of alleyways, her iridescent cloak dulled and her diplomatic sigil hidden beneath battered armor. She was no longer Xylarian envoy, not in the eyes of the galaxy, traitor, exiled, and marked for death. But she held her head high, Jace at her side, defiance in every step. "I've secured passage," she announced, as she ducked into the shadowy back room of a den carved into the station's foundations. Jace, leaning against a rusted bulkhead, scanned the exits, hand never straying far from the pulse pistol at his hip. "With who?" he demanded, voice low. Syrah flicked her tail with practiced nonchalance. "Krellin's Shade. He controls half the transit in this sector. I offered him something he couldn't refuse. Coordinates to a hidden arms cache in the Lyris fields." Jace's eyes narrowed. "You're sure about this? Krellin's not a friend. We're leverage to him, nothing more." "I know," Syrah replied, her tone cool. "But we don't have time for caution. We need to get to the Nebula Verge, the original core splitter facility, and Krellin's ship is the only one fast enough to outrun Drell's hounds." Jace moved closer, lowering his voice. "He'll sell us out the moment he gets what he wants." Syrah met his gaze. "Then we make sure he gets it only when we're safe." She laid a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. "Trust me, Jace. I'm not ready to lose you to a second-rate smuggler." He grinned despite himself, but the worry lingered in his eyes. That night, holed up in a cramped safe house above a gambling den, they let their guards fall at last. The room was little more than a cot and a battered terminal, the air thick with spice smoke and distant laughter. Syrah shed her armor, revealing the silver filigree still shining along her crimson skin. She curled beside Jace on the narrow cot, exhaustion softening her features. "Tell me about your world," she said quietly, tail winding over his fingers. He smiled, closing his eyes. "Earth's forests are endless. Pines stretching for miles, rain so cold it stings your skin. The auroras, sheets of green and violet fire. My sister and I would sneak out at night, just to watch them dance." Syrah's voice was wistful. "Xylaria has floating gardens, orchids that shimmer above the water, colors you'd never imagine. My favorite place was the spire, the highest tower above the clouds. When the twin moons rose, the sea would glitter all the way to the horizon. Jace listened, his hand finding hers. If we make it out, I want to show you Earth's auroras. Syrah squeezed his fingers, her tail curling tighter. When we make it, she corrected, smiling into his shoulder. Peace was fleeting. Alarms shrieked through the safe house, lights blazing crimson. Every screen in the district flickered to life with Drell's grim face, his voice echoing over the speakers. Bounty on Syrah Valen and Jace Wren. Alive, if possible. Dead, if necessary. The corridors exploded into chaos. Mercenaries converged, drawn by the promise of credits. Syrah and Jace ran, moving as one. She fired cover shots with a calm she barely felt. Jace's training took over, guiding her through narrow passageways and over debris. His movements grew sluggish, pain flickering across his face. His health was failing, the neural mesh burning too hot. But he pressed on. They burst onto the docks, Krellin's angular ship visible across the bay. Syrah caught her breath, glancing at Jace as realization dawned in his eyes. You wanted him to find us, she accused, voice tight. You let Drell track us here. Jace stopped, shoulders tense. I needed confirmation. Drell wants me because my implants are Xylarian tech. He recognizes his own work. He was one of the designers. I had to know for sure. Syrah reeled, the pieces falling into place. The Xylarians, Solarians, the hegemony, they're all in this together, pretending to be enemies while building weapons in secret. He nodded. The galaxy's built on secrets and lies. A blaster bolt sizzled past, snapping them back to the moment. Together they sprinted, fighting through Krellin's crew and Drell's mercenaries, barely reaching the ship before the bay erupted in violence. Krellin himself waited in the cockpit, his shadowed eyes amused. Payment, he drawled. Syrah uploaded the cache coordinates. You get them when we're airborne, Krellin grinned, but took them at their word, launching into Rift Point's swirling haze. As the ship vanished into the stars, Syrah leaned against the bulkhead, breathless. They needed more than escape. They needed truth. Syrah activated a secure line to her old mentor, Envoy Lyra Senna. The connection was unstable, Lyra's familiar face flickering on the display, lines of worry etched deep. Syrah, is it true? Lyra asked, voice trembling. We have proof, Syrah replied. She transferred the decrypted core splitter files and the evidence of collusion. Lyra read in silence, horror dawning. This can't be allowed to continue. Meet me at Relay Outpost 37. I'll help you. Jace watched warily, distrust in every line of his body. We can't trust anyone, Syrah. Not now. She's all we have left, Syrah insisted, hope and fear warring in her eyes. At the relay, Lyra met them in a windowless chamber, her embrace genuine, hands trembling as she scanned the files again. You've done the right thing. Rest here for now. I'll arrange safe passage. Later, in the privacy of their assigned room, Syrah and Jace let the tension finally break. She pressed her lips to his, her hands tracing the lines of his jaw and the old scars on his back. I never imagined loving a human, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Jace cradled her face, thumb brushing the silver filigree on her cheek. And I never thought I'd trust an alien envoy, he replied. But I do. With everything. They found each other in the dark, barriers dissolving, breaths mingling, hearts racing. Syrah's tail curled possessively around his hand as they gave in to the hunger that had burned between them since Arcadia. For a few precious hours, the galaxy's war fell away. Only their bodies, their whispered confessions, and the wild certainty of their bond remained. Before dawn, Jace jolted awake, every sense on edge. He rolled to the floor, pulling Syrah with him, just as the door exploded inward. Security forces stormed the room, Lyra among them, sorrow in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said, voice choked. The galaxy needs balance. The weapon is the only way. Syrah's eyes went wide with betrayal. Jace shielded her as plasma fire lanced through the air, pain blooming hot across his shoulder. Blood spattered the wall, Syrah's scream drowned by the chaos. They fought back, desperate, bloodied. Jace's training held, guiding them through the burning corridors. They made it to the launch bay, Syrah half-carrying Jace, fury and heartbreak driving her on. There was nowhere left to run, except the Nebula Verge, the original research outpost. As the relay burned behind them, they vanished into the cold silence of space, hunted by all sides, but unbroken and together. The journey to the Nebula Verge was perilous. Syrah piloted the battered shuttle through asteroid shadows and ion storms, hands steady on the controls even as her mind whirled with worry. Jace slumped beside her in the co-pilot's chair, blood soaking through the improvised bandage at his shoulder, his breath ragged. Each jolt of turbulence sent pain lancing through him, and Syrah's heart clenched at every wince he failed to hide. "You're fading," she murmured, brushing a damp lock of hair from his brow as the nav beacon blinked in the gloom. "The wound's worse than you let on." Jace forced a smile, lips pale. "I've survived worse. The outpost has the tech to help me. We just have to make it there." He gripped her hand, his touch trembling but determined. "Don't worry, Syrah. I'm not leaving you." She bit back a retort, the memory of plasma fire and betrayal burning behind her eyes. "Hold on," she whispered, guiding the shuttle toward the ancient research facility looming ahead, a cold silhouette against the nebula's pale glow. They docked with a shudder, the airlock cycling open to reveal corridors coated in dust and silence. Syrah slung Jace's good arm over her shoulders, half carrying him through the deserted halls. The place reeked of forgotten secrets, deactivated security turrets and faded warning glyphs lining the walls. Every echo seemed to promise danger. In the main lab, the source of Jace's torment waited. A neural interface, its surface etched with alien circuitry, cables snaking like vines from a metal throne. Syrah set Jace down beside it, her tail flicking nervously. "You're sure about this?" she asked, scanning the chamber for threats. Jace nodded, face tight with pain. "If I can access the core partition, I can extract everything. The weapon schematics, the whole conspiracy. We'll finally have proof." Syrah unslung her pulse pistol, standing guard at the door. "I'll watch your back. Just come back to me." He gave her a crooked smile, then pressed his palm to the interface. The machine came alive, threads of light pulsing up his arm and into his skull. He convulsed, breath catching as data poured into his mind, memories and code fusing in a torrent. Syrah's nerves stretched thin as minutes crawled past. The silence was broken by a sudden blare, alarms shrieking, red lights strobing across the lab. A harsh voice echoed over the comms. "Security breach. All personnel to containment." The doors slid open. Major Drell strode in, his armor gleaming, a cold smile curling his lips. Soldiers fanned out behind him, weapons raised. "Well done, Commander Wren," Drell drawled, eyes flicking to the interface. "You led us right to the source. And you, Envoy Valen, such a disappointment. I expected more from Zilaria's golden child." Syrah stepped forward, chin high, pulse pistol leveled. "We know about the core splitter, Drell. We have evidence of your conspiracy, Solarian, Xylarian, hegemony. The whole galaxy will know." Drell's sneer deepened. "Proof won't help you. The weapon is nearly ready. Power will shift, and you'll be nothing but a footnote in the history of our ascendancy." Jace's eyes fluttered open, sweat streaming down his face. "You're wrong," he rasped, fingers flying across the console. "I'm extracting the data. Even if you kill us, the truth will out." Drell's soldiers advanced. Syrah fired, taking down the lead trooper. Chaos erupted. Blaster bolts seared the air. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Jace wrenched the data drive free and staggered to Syrah's side, blood blossoming anew at his wound. The station shook, distant explosions rattling the deck. Through shattered windows, Syrah glimpsed incoming ships, Solarian, Xylarian, hegemony warships, and the ragtag fleet of Vexil's mercenaries, all drawn by the scent of ultimate power. Drell was relentless, pursuing them through collapsing corridors. Syrah fought with ruthless efficiency, never letting Jace fall behind. They reached a crumpled bulkhead, Drell blocking their escape, pulse rifle raised. "It ends here," he snarled, fury twisting his features. "Not for us," Syrah shot back. She ducked his first shot, rolling to the side, firing 3 times in quick succession. Drell staggered, wounded but not down. Jace, teeth clenched in agony, lunged forward, slamming the drive into Drell's chest, disabling his armor's power supply. Sparks flew, and Drell collapsed, defeated at last. Panting, Syrah hauled Jace onward, weaving through fire and ruin. They burst into the hangar, dodging falling debris and wild gunfire. Their shuttle, pocked with blaster scars, waited in the last dock. Syrah slammed the hatch shut behind them as the station's alarms reached a fever pitch. Jace slumped into the co-pilot's seat, clutching the drive to his chest. "We have to get this out. If they erase the evidence, everything we've done is for nothing." Syrah's hands flew across the console, engines roaring to life. "Who can we trust?" Jace asked, voice rough with exhaustion and fear. She met his gaze, determination burning in her golden eyes. "The Arcadia news grid. They're independent, no allegiances, just the truth." As the shuttle tore away from the war zone, Syrah patched into the comms array, uploading the data drive's contents to every Arcadia grid relay in range. Jace's vision blurred as he watched code and images, the core splitter schematics, records of the secret packs, evidence of Drell's duplicity, stream out into the ether. They watched, breathless, as the news grid came alive. Broadcasts cut across every sector, pirate enclaves, homeworld capitals, border colonies. Faces appeared on screens, ministers caught in lies, admirals stammering denials, Drell's final transmission frozen in defeat. Outrage swept the galaxy. Protests swelling in city squares, warships pulling back from the brink, diplomats forced to the table as the threat of the core splitter was revealed to all. In the cockpit, the world outside faded. Syrah checked Jace's wound, her touch gentle, her tail curling protectively around his wrist. The adrenaline ebbed, replaced by a bone-deep weariness and a fragile, luminous hope. "We did it," Jace whispered, voice hoarse but laced with awe. He managed a tired smile, the first in what felt like a lifetime. Syrah pressed her forehead to his, her breath warm on his cheek. "Together," she murmured, her tail winding around his wrist in silent promise. Their kiss was soft and relieved, sealing the bond forged in fire and sacrifice. Outside, the galaxy changed. Inside, for one precious moment, there was only the two of them, entwined hands, shared breath, and the certainty that together they had saved 1,000 worlds. As the galaxy reeled from the revelations, Syrah and Jace became legends, heroes to some, fugitives to others. Their faces graced the data feeds, their names whispered in the corridors of power and in outlaw dens alike. Governments scrambled to contain the fallout. With the core splitter exposed, the race to control or destroy such weapons dominated every council and backroom negotiation. But for the first time in a generation, the balance of fear forced the old enemies to the table. Delegations spoke in cautious tones, their words edged with the knowledge that annihilation was no longer a myth, but a blueprint hidden in a human mind. In the chaos, Syrah and Jace vanished into the outer fringe. They hid among the asteroid towns and drifting markets, learning to move like shadows, unremarkable, resourceful, always a step ahead of those who still hunted secrets. Their faces no longer flickered on wanted lists, but old habits died hard. Even in the anonymity of exile, They kept their backs to the wall and their comms encrypted. Resources dwindled. Credits were scarce, and trust even more so. They forged new identities, crafted by Syrah's diplomatic cunning and Jace's knack for subterfuge. Sometimes they posed as starship engineers or wandering traders, sometimes as scientists seeking rare alloys. They survived on their wits, their training, and on each other. At night, when the galaxy outside felt impossibly large and cold, their safe house became a sanctuary. Syrah would draw intricate Xylarian glyphs on Jace's bare shoulder, the silver lines shimmering in the low light, tracing patterns that told stories of her lost home. Jace would close his eyes, letting her voice transport him to Xylaria's floating gardens and seas that glittered with starlight. In turn, he described Earth's rainforests, the smell of pine, the wild rush of auroras unfurling across polar skies. "Is it true," Syrah would ask, fingers drifting along his jaw, "that Earth's oceans are endless?" He would nod, a gentle smile curving his lips. "If you ever get tired of running, I'll show you. We'll swim until the stars come out." Sometimes, messages arrived from the shadows, encrypted pings from Vexel or Krellin, allies of necessity. One warning would arrive in Vexel's clipped insectoid syntax: "Xylarian patrols in Grid 79, avoid jump." Another, from Krellin, was more sardonic: "You owe me for that last shipment. Next time, don't blow up the drop site." Syrah and Jace laughed over these missives, reminded that even out here, connections lingered, sharp-edged but real. Yet the wounds of the galaxy ran deep. The powers that be still thirsted for dominance. News feeds were filled with debate. Where was the line between deterrence and destruction? Who would control the research if it survived at all? Syrah and Jace, ghosts in the system, did what they could from the edges. Syrah's old contacts slipped her fragments of intelligence. Jace, with his knack for code, would slip into encrypted networks and plant viruses that slowed weapons development or crashed illegal auctions. They became a rumor, a whisper that someone, somewhere, sabotaged every project that threatened to tip the balance again. A shuttle would explode on the launch pad. A data server would melt from a cascading failure. A warlord's mercenaries would find their weapons crates filled with harmless scrap. No one ever saw the saboteurs, but the pattern was unmistakable. The galaxy's war engines stuttered, forced to pause, if only for a while. Their romance flourished in exile. Syrah was still fierce, her laughter quick and sly, her loyalty absolute. Jace learned to read the subtle cues of her moods, the flick of her tail, the softening of her gaze, the way she pressed her forehead to his in the Xylarian sign of devotion. Their intimacy was an alchemy of passion and curiosity, each encounter a new discovery. Some nights, Syrah would teach Jace the old songs of her childhood, their harmonies strange and haunting. Other nights, Jace would show her how to dance Earth's waltzes, guiding her hands and tail as music drifted from the old comm unit. "Your people believe in soul marks," he said once, tracing the silver filigree on her skin. "Do you think I have one?" Syrah smiled, pressing his palm to her heart. "It's not something you see. It's something you choose, every day." They dreamed together. Syrah imagined Earth's blue-green curve rising beneath a shuttle window, salt on her tongue, the wild freedom of open water. Jace was fascinated by the neural artistry of Xylarian jewelry, the living gems that responded to a lover's touch. Their talk of the future was half hope, half defiance, a promise that exile could be more than survival. It could be a beginning. Sometimes the universe reminded them that peace was fragile. A coded alert would flicker across their terminal, a bounty renewed, a patrol drawing near, a slip in a false identity. They moved when they had to, never lingering too long. Once, they lost everything: credits, gear, even the shuttle, in a hasty escape. They started over with nothing but each other, building new names and new legends. One night, drifting in a borrowed shuttle above a sapphire world, Syrah leaned against Jace, their bodies wrapped in shared warmth as dawn broke across the horizon. The planet's clouds glowed gold and pink, casting ribbons of light over their faces. "Will we ever stop running?" she asked, her voice soft, carrying the ache of years in exile. Jace squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "Maybe," he said, watching the sun rise. "Or maybe we'll just find better places to run to." Syrah laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and her tail entwined with his fingers. "If we reach Earth, I want to see your oceans. I want to swim until I can't remember which sky I came from." He pressed a kiss to the smooth curve of her crimson cheek. "And I want to see your floating gardens. I want to walk with you under the twin moons and never look back." For a moment, the galaxy's dangers faded, the betrayals, the chases, the impossible choices. All that remained was the certainty of their love, hard-won, unbreakable, a light in the darkness. Together, they faced the unknown, two fugitives, bound by trust and a romance that had survived betrayal, war, and the darkest secrets of their worlds. Whatever the future held, they would face it side by side, their story just beginning as the galaxy healed from its wounds. That's the end of the story. You can leave us a tip or become a channel member. This greatly helps our team improve the quality of our videos. You can send a tip using the Super Thanks button right below the video. We truly appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed and supported us. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.